The path of least resistance. In life, there are many examples of when it's smart to take the path of least resistance. The benefit of going this path are obvious. There is less resistance going this path, which can save energy and eliminate unnecessary friction. The best example of this pattern is electricity, or more concretely, lightning. When friction grows among water molecules, electrons get excited, creating an electric charge. This then gets released in the form of electricity, or what we know as lightning. The path of the lightning may appear to be fractured and random, while the path might indeed be random. Electricity travels through the path of least resistance. Electricity finds the best path to reach the destination, which in most cases is the closest object. It could be the ground, building, people, houses, street lighting, and basically everything that closes the circuit and is in the path of least resistance. The path may not seem to make sense since a straight line may be shorter, but the important objective here is not the shortest path, rather the path of least resistance. The interesting part is that going in a straight line could be more costly than going the longer route. In our personal lives, we often may want to consider a similar strategy. The short path is not necessarily the best path. If we go in a straight line, we may encounter barriers that will make the path more costly and not worthwhile. This often comes in the form of conflict or going against the stream. There is a good reason why most people prefer to avoid conflict when possible. It's a costly endeavor. To use a conductive metaphor, going in a straight line, we may encounter a wall. We can attempt breaking the wall in order to proceed, but that is again costly and may not be possible. The other strategy is going around the wall while avoiding the barrier altogether. Another example of this pattern is water. Looking at the river, we can clearly see how water seeks to travel on the path of least resistance. Rivers are created as water accumulates and travels downward thanks to gravity. The path of the water would depend on many variables such as soil, rocks, sediment, water pressure, altitude, and more. The general rule determining where the water would go is where it's the easiest for it to travel. This is why creating a path for water to flow is an effective way to redirect water where needed. Pouring water on the ground is the best way to see this in action. As we pour, we can see where the water travels, and then we find the reasons why it went that particular route. It could be a crack, a, dec- a decent wind, and more that shape the trajectory of where the water goes. Similarly, a lightning strike is a way for electricity to be channeled to the ground. This works since it's installed on the highest point of the building, which gives lightning an easy path. As usual, we want to take into account counterexamples where the path of least resistance is not the best path forward. On some occasions, conflict may yield a better result than trying to diminish resistance. It depends on the situation. If we use the same metaphor, going around the wall is not always possible. The wall may be too long for it to be worth going around it. Alternatively, the wall may be made of a weak material that can easily be taken apart. Another problem with seeking the path of least resistance is that in real life, it's not always clear cut. It's not always clear which is the path of least resistance. In a conflict situation, it's often easier to start the conflict than looking for a more mature way to solve it. In the long run, this may not be beneficial, but it's easier nonetheless. Regardless of which perspective is the correct one, the idea of seeking the path of least resistance is often a good strategy. A good rule of thumb is to seek the least resistance when energy maximization is our objective. There is a good reason why most forms of energy travel through the path of least resistance. It may take a bit longer, but more energy is being conserved. Conversely, in other situations, when energy is not of concern, seeking the path of least resistance may not be appropriate. In some situations, breaking the wall is the best strategy. Conflict might be the only path forward on some occasions. However, determining which situation falls where could be costly in and of itself. But we should strive to notice when we are in the extremes and avoid those. For example, if we notice we are trying to break an impossible wall, we should look for a way to go around it. If we notice we are actively wasting our time looking for a way around a cardboard wall, we should use more force. Lastly, in more cases than not, the path of least resistance might be the best strategy in the long term. Same with energy forms. It's the best way forward that conserves energy and maximizes utility. Thank you.